Archaeologists have discovered the tomb of an ancient sorcerer, revealed the secret of the mystical Hand of Glory, and told what could be bought for 1,000 copper coins in Antiquity. Random finds by amateur archaeologists and much more you will see in this video if you watch it to the end. Hi friend, you're on the KirTop channel. Ancient Roman treasure in the Swiss Alps. Someone comes to Switzerland just to relax and have a good time in the mountains, and some people are even luckier. Between the mountain peaks Ammertenhorn and Wildstrubel, the traveler accidentally stumbled upon a coin taken out of the ground. As a law-abiding citizen, he immediately turned to archaeologists. During excavations, researchers found many other artifacts here. So far, the team has found 100 coins, 27 small rock crystals, 59 shoe nails, a brooch, and a fragment of a votive tablet. And all these artifacts date back to Roman rule. The Romans lived throughout the territory of modern Switzerland, but scientists did not expect to find a treasure at an altitude of 2,950 meters. Archaeologists often find coins and small artifacts all over Switzerland, but finding such a huge amount at once, moreover so high, is a rarity. Such a remote location of the treasure suggests that this place could have had a great religious significance. 20 kilometers away is the city of Thun, where the ruins of several Roman temples were found. In one of them, archaeologists found an inscription that mentions female alpine deities. Most likely, the mountains really had a religious significance, which is also hinted at by rock crystals found next to coins and jewelry. The treasure hidden during the war. And again, an accidental find by an amateur treasure hunter. This time we will go to the Netherlands. A treasure hunter found a magnificent collection of gold jewelry and silver coins in a swamp. So far, they are still being researched, but archaeologists already believe that they are typical of the Friesland region. Museum curators in the Netherlands believe they were hidden there some 800 years ago, possibly during the war. The hoard consists of 4 gold pendants, 2 strips of gold leaf, and 39 silver coins. The discovery was made back in 2021 in the small northern town of Hoogwood in the West Frisia region. Until now, archaeologists cannot establish the owner of these jewelry and coins, but one thing is clear for sure: they belonged to a very influential and wealthy man of the Middle Ages. It is believed that this was the property of the Countess of Holland. The minted silver coins come in many styles, some from the early 13th century. The newest coin dates from the late 1240s, coinciding with the war period. This explains why the owner buried these valuable things. Hand of Glory. Ancient magicians and shamans surprise and amaze with their ingenuity. Especially, their knowledge of human psychology is inspiring. Particularly, besides the fact that they managed to create some magical objects, they also force people to believe in their miraculous power. One such example is the Hand of Glory. The first mention of this terrible contraption dates back to the 1600s, but only the ones officially recorded. To create this magical item, the hand of a hanged murderer was needed. The most interesting thing is that I even have a recipe for making this terrible thing. You can write it down, maybe it will come in handy for you sometime. The hand must be cut off from the body of a hanged criminal, marinated in salt and urine of a man, woman, dog, horse, and mare. Then it must be smoked with herbs and hay for a month, hung on an oak tree for 3 nights in a row, and then hung on a church door for 1 night. And if during this time no fear drives you away, the hand will be yours. According to another recipe, the hand had to be marinated in different ingredients, so to speak. 2 of them are pony and zemat. Fortunately, we still do not know the translations of the word. So, what is the meaning of this hand? And here, everything is simple. When performing a certain ritual using this hand, you can open absolutely any door on the planet. It's a kind of magical lockpick. Remarkably, history even preserved descriptions of supposedly real cases of the use of such artifacts. In the 1873 book Curious Myth of the Middle Ages, there was a servant girl's story. During a severe storm, a beggar appeared on the threshold of an inn in the English county of Northumberland. There was no room, but he was allowed to spend the night by the fire next to the maid. The woman woke up at night and saw how the guest removed a dry human hand from the folds of his cloak, lit the candles fixed between his fingers and quietly muttered some kind of spell. The maid rushed to wake her master and other servants, but they were fast asleep. Then she grabbed. After that, he calmly wandered around the hall, putting more or less valuable things in a bag: dishes, candelabra, and others. The maid rushed to wake her master and other servants, but they were fast asleep. Then she grabbed a jug of milk and poured it into her hand. The candles went out and sleep paralysis fell from the inhabitants of the house. Now such hands are part of the expositions of several museums, and each with its sinister story. The next find was already of real value in the Middle Ages. Treasure with 1,000 coins. The story happened in Poland, where a resident named Michał Lotysz, using a metal detector, was looking for parts of a tractor on a farm. However, what he found made him very happy. It was a jug with coins from the 17th century. The treasure was found near the small village of Zaniówka in eastern Poland, not far from the borders with Belarus and Ukraine. Judging by the place of discovery, archaeologists believe that they buried it purposefully around the second half of the 17th century. As I said earlier, the search for ancient artifacts with a metal detector is not allowed in all countries. For example, in Poland, it is considered illegal. Therefore, a local resident immediately turns to archaeologists who have permission to conduct excavations. In total, the jar contained 1,000 copper coins. We often hear that archaeologists find 500 coins, 1,000 and 10,000, but we often do not understand whether this is a lot or not. In this situation, archaeologists were helped by historical documents from the 17th century. Thus, the researchers were able to roughly calculate what could be bought with these coins before. In fact, a jug filled with copper coins is not such a large amount of money. In the 17th century, they could buy 2 pairs of shoes or perhaps 20 gallons of beer. Emperor with the body of a lion. An interesting find was discovered by archaeologists in the temple complex of the goddess Hathor in Dendera, which is 60 kilometers from Luxor. It would seem that finding a sphinx in Egypt is quite easy and thousands of them were found. However, on the face of this sphinx there was a mysterious smile, and 2 dimples can be seen on the cheeks. The face of the limestone statue, as it seemed to scientists, has a clear resemblance to the Roman Emperor Claudius. Emperor Tiberius Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus ruled from 41 to 54 AD, and under him, the Roman Empire extended, including to the territory of North Africa. The mini sphinx, on which traces of yellow and red paint have been preserved, is significantly inferior in size to the famous sphinx from the Giza Valley, which reaches a height of 20 meters and a length of 73 meters. However, in terms of the importance of discovery, it may not be inferior to a giant statue. A mini sphinx was found on the territory of the temple of the ancient Egyptian god Horus, which dates back to the Roman era. Now scientists are studying demotic and hieroglyphic inscriptions on a stone slab found near the sphinx. Archaeologists are hoping to find out if the statue really depicts Emperor Claudius with the body of a lion. The graves of the ancient writers. I talked about the first chariots in the previous video, and in this one, we will find out when mankind mastered horseback riding. Scientists from the University of Helsinki believe that this happened at least 4,300 years ago. The researchers studied more than 217 skeletons from 39 sites. Of these, about 150 belong to the Yamnaya culture. At least 24 skeletons could have belonged to riders, which could mean that riding was widespread as early as 3,000 years ago. Riding, as indicated by changes in the skeleton, the places of attachment of muscles to the pelvis and thigh, the shape of the articular head of the hip joint, the generation of the vertebrae due to vertical load, and others. There are 6 skeletal signs to determine that a horse was used for riding. In one of the graves, which is 4,300 years old, only 4 of them were found. It used to be believed that horse riding was mastered by the Yamnaya culture, which made them the first nomads and allowed them to spread the Proto-Indo-European languages through a large part of Eurasia. However, it is not yet clear what people used horses for. Either it was more convenient to graze cattle, or riding horses was a status symbol. But it should not be ruled out that the main use of horseback riding was war. After all, historically it so happened that forced people to come up with new technologies and improve their lives. To improve their fighting qualities on the battlefield, people used horses. In the future, horses helped fix their everyday problems and accelerated the assimilation of new lands. Ancient skull comb. Today, combs are made from a wide variety of materials: plastic, metal, or wood. But in the Iron Age in England, combs were made from human skulls. At least one such find was discovered by archaeologists during the construction of a highway in Bar Hill. The comb was found in 2018, but only now scientists have told about the results of their study. At first glance, it seems that there is nothing unusual in it, but the material of its production, to put it mildly, shocked archaeologists. It was a human skull. But scientists did not find traces of use on the comb. This means that they did not comb their hair with the comb, but most likely used it as an amulet. A hole was also found on it, possibly for a thread or rope. Probably the amulet was created from the skull of an important person who was revered in the Iron Age even after death. There is an assumption that these could be the remains of a relative. Interestingly, this is the third such comb found. In the 70s of the last century and in 2000, the same ones were already found, and also not far from Bar Hill. Most likely in this region during the Iron Age, this was a common practice. What people did not invent in ancient times to protect themselves from evil spirits. Pearl City on the island. On the territory of the United Arab Emirates, archaeologists have made a sensational discovery. In the Persian Gulf on the island of Sinai, researchers have found an ancient pearl city. In the pre-Islamic period in the 6th century, thousands of people lived here. The main occupation of the inhabitants of this city was the collection of pearl shells. Archaeologists have found millions of shells on the island. They still crunch underfoot. On the island, name of which means flashing light, archaeologists previously discovered an ancient Christian monastery dating back 1,400 years. The city is located directly south of the monastery and covers an area of about 12 hectares. Archaeologists have unearthed a variety of stone and lime mortar houses here, ranging from cramped quarters to larger houses with patios. In the houses, archaeologists found both scattered small pearls and diving weights, with the help of which divers descended to the seabed holding their breath. Pearl mining flourished until the beginning of the 20th century, but after the First World War, people learned how to extract artificial pearls. Since then, on the island, you can see a million pearl shells that just lay around under your feet. Fresco with two-headed men. And again, excavations in Peru, and again, interesting frescoes await us. This time, at the 1,400-year-old archaeological site of Panamarca, archaeologists have discovered frescoes depicting two-faced men holding unusual artifacts. Both frescoes decorating the same column in the main hall have many interesting details. One fresco depicts a man with two faces, holding a fan of feathers in one hand and a goblet from which 4 hummingbirds drink in the other. The second two-faced, depicted below on the column, holds a moving fan of feathers in one hand and a stick-shaped object in the other, only partially preserved. The people who lived in South America are still little studied. Why the Moche people portrayed these two men in this way remains a mystery. The Moche built huge temples, performed human sacrifice, and created beautiful works of art out of ceramics and gold. When studying these frescoes, archaeologists were divided into two opinions. Some believe that these were images of ancient deities, others dispute this since the images of deities in Moche art have non-human aspects such as fangs, animal muzzles, tails, or wings of various creatures. Archaeologists have been studying the frescoes in this place for more than 60 years, and despite this, most of the hole has not yet been excavated, and probably other frescoes are waiting to be discovered. It is still unknown how the Moche used this hole. This place could hardly be public since the passages in it are very narrow and cramped. Therefore, for the time being, we will wait for further excavations here, which will be able to uncover the mystery of the ancient two-headed creatures. Roman sorcerer's tomb. Archaeologists are already difficult to scare and surprise with something, but this find discovered in the ancient city of Sagalassus was an exception. They found an unusual cremation burial, twice sealed and studded with curved nails. People in ancient times thus wanted to save the world of the living from the dead buried here. Who it was and why they tried to hide it even up to death, you will learn further. Sagalassus was founded at the end of the 5th century BC when the region was part of the Achaemenid Empire, and by the 2nd century BC it had become quite an important urban center of the Hellenistic kingdom of Pergamon. In 25 BC, Octavian Augustus included it in the Roman province of Galatia, and this was the era of the highest prosperity of the city. The cremation burial was dated to 100–150 AD. The buried was an adult man who was cremated and left on the same fire. Archaeologists also noticed that no one touched the charred remains after burning. And this is already becoming interesting, because according to the ancient Roman practice of cremation, the ashes were usually collected in an urn and buried in a grave or placed in a tomb. But even this is not the strangest thing that the researchers noticed. Someone scattered 41 bent and twisted nails along the edges of the cremation fire. They could not be used for practical purposes. Their distribution around the perimeter of the fire indicates that the nails were placed there in some particular order. On top of the still smoldering fire, 24 large bricks were tightly laid. Then the bricks were covered with a thick layer of plaster. The result was a rather massive and well-sealed tomb. It is interesting that each of these practices was already met in ancient Rome: cremation and sealing the grave with bricks and even twisted nails. However, in our story, everything was used in one place. Most likely the buried was a dangerous person during his lifetime. Unfortunately, the remains of the burned man turned out to be unsuitable for DNA analysis. According to the principle of other burials of that period, archaeologists concluded that the buried was an ancient sorcerer. This is what frightened people when the sorcerer was alive, and caused such a fear that they decided to conduct a terrible burial ceremony with sealing the grave. Rate this video with a thumbs up, tell your friends about it, and subscribe to the channel, and I will definitely answer every kind comment. Thanks for your views, bye everyone!